I cannot guarantee that if you read all of it, you're going to be in a good mood afterwards. But part of that sort of, and there's no genitalia in the report, and that's going to come up later in the fact that we're being sued in part because there is no genitalia in the report. I'll get to that. How that only somebody at Winston & Strawn could come up with that legal sophistry. That you actually get sued because you put black boxes over penises. But this project, this Marco Polo effort, was created out of necessity. We, for 6 months after DJT left the White House, were trying to find a group of people that would take would take some time, months, in our case over a year, to go through all this. And what do I mean by this? I mean, when you have this thing called iCloud, not only is your computer, chock full of calendar entries, photos, documents, although there are only two Excel documents on Hunter's laptop. We're told that he's in high finance and private equity. We found 2 Excel documents. Over 11 years, the guy did 0 work in private equity. He literally cannot do a spreadsheet, knows nothing about it. But what we found when we tried to find a group to go through this is, number one, many people on the right are litigation averse. What that means is they can see, they understand the level of evil that is Abby Lowell, Mark Elias, Perkins Coie, but they don't want to actually shed some blood and fight these folks. And they realize that if you go through, and we're going to go through the dossier, but if you go through the hard drive, it's such a third rail. The content is so lurid that if you are to accurately describe what is in the hard drive, they will sue you. They'll sue you for ridiculous things, nothing even, coming close to a true cause of action, meaning we don't want to defame Hunter. The content itself defames him. We don't need to add much commentary, right? His own actions paint him in a bad light. But this was very concerning to us in the start of 2021. I'm going from the beginning. I'm going to do this chronologically because I think that, some people will probably know this backstory, and I apologize for that, but some of you might not. Some of you may, know nothing about our group. But, we came together for one purpose. We organized a C3. I'm the youngest guy involved. We actually have a brother of somebody here tonight who's been involved in this effort. And we did it very methodically. We have a private investigator on our board. We have a semi-retired attorney who spent 2 decades in the Navy, and then me. So there's 3 members of our board. And what we did was this hard drive, which was legally abandoned, regardless of what Abby Lowell says, no matter how many times he puts in a footnote from ridiculous characters, Hunter, for over a year, didn't retrieve the hard drive. Under Delaware state law, which is the operative law, in normal times, the feds don't get involved in like diaries or personal hard drives. Those are state-level issues. That's why we have federalism. But even if it was a federal thing, there is no law entitling Hunter to have access to that data after he abandoned it. So it really is, the stars have aligned for us in one way, and we'll never have this opportunity again. That's why I was so dead set on somebody has to create the greatest opposition research document you can. Meaning, even if we have this level of data in the future, somebody may steal the laptop, right? In which case, the legal implications and everything downstream are changed. But the fact that he abandoned it is just nuts. So not only are we in the clear legally, meaning whatever you hear on the news about us getting sued, we're like the 4th entity to get the thing, right? So Bart Nicky and all these SCOTUS cases have already been litigated. Some white shoe guy has gotten paid $1,400 an hour to argue this in front of our 9 robed people in D.C. And they come out on our side, right? So I preface the talk tonight with the lawfare aspect just to say that the more we focus on who gave it to who first, outside of, we have to have chain of custody, and we do go into that for multiple pages and some of the sordid characters surrounding that. But beyond establishing chain of custody, the more time we talk about how it got into the public domain, the less time we talk about what the actual content is, right? And so that's why you're not going to see them actually try to debunk the dossier, is because if they try to do that, they'll fail. But even if they try, the more eyeballs will actually go to the report, which is what they don't want to do. So, and that's why I am going all across the country. This is the 11th state I've been to. And Justin and I just connected. He just responded to a query I put out. All of this is, every single person involved with Marco Polo I met after this soft coup. Nobody in Marco Polo is involved with politics besides myself, and everybody I met through shared loves. I think it's much easier to start up friendships, meaning there's so many conversations you don't have to have if you understand the reality that, this election was a joke, right? And, former spooks, the CIA, MSNBC, all these folks covered for Hunter. If you recognize that truth, it's somewhat easy to form organizations and what, some modern folks call sort of affinity groups. Once you understand those truths, you can sort of get behind a mission quicker. And so we start in July of 2021. We take, anywhere. I did about 6 months of straight research. What does that mean? If you've ever met a crackhead in real life, you know that if they're on drugs, their thoughts are not, linear. They're not logical. So imagine a crackhead's laptop. Everything is displayed all over the desktop. Like if you go into my computer, everything's categorized by date, and there's a certain order of the date. It goes year, month, because I'm an American, not a European, year, month, day, right? So it's very easy to find stuff. That is not the case with Hunter. So if you're going to do this in a methodical way, a professional way, a way that in 25 years we'll be happy and proud of the way we did it, is we had to siphon off each data type. Right? So what does that mean? That means you've got to have somebody who knows Max at a bit level and separate all the file types. PowerPoint, Excel, there's 2 of them, as I mentioned, 2 Excel docs. Think about that. This guy, Avi Lowell told people on live TV that his client was a financier and he had 2 Excel docs on his laptop. I can't get over that. You separate all file types, and then you put all files in chronological order. And there is a good Socratic dialogue with our team members about how to lay out this dossier. If you want a true dossier that will stand up for decades, you have to put a lot of thought in how you categorize it. Do you just do all chronological or all topic-based? Meaning, do we just want to put one section of, Hunter with crack and hookers, Hunter with hookers without crack? How do you do this? So this lasted months, and we did a Solomon-like approach and split the baby, and we did chronological and topical at the same time. By the way, this epitaph, if you don't know what an epitaph is, it's this pithy short quote at the beginning of documents. Here, I'm going to try to... There it is. Avi Lowell is a Shakespeare fiend. He's actually the general counsel of the Shakespeare Theater, or was at one time, for decades, right? This guy's like, 5 for 5, but he's a high-powered lawyer. He has a Napoleon complex. That is actually a quote from Shakespeare, a play called Measure for Measure. And so every time Avi reads this, I love that, because it's using the Shakespeare quote in his love of Shakespeare against his own client. So thy sin's not accidental, but a trade. Which, is self-explanatory. It's not that hard to get. Some Shakespeare stuff, you're like, what the hell, man? This is like old, archaic English. But this means that it's not a one-off, right? They want you to believe that this is just a black sheep. He is a little bit immature, and so does Wild Oats at 49. Most kids do it at 21. But no, this is a trade of the Bidens. This behavior is chronic. It runs through almost every family, and the dossier lays out how it's over a decade. It's not a one-off thing. This isn't one night where I love that, it's really dark, but I love that Godfather scene where they have that senator from Nevada in the brothel. It's not a one-off thing. It's a pattern of behavior. And Steve actually mentioned the animal hyenas on Warren today. And we actually, That's actually in our dossier. They weren't our words. A former business partner described the family as hyenas. And what that means is, in a business deal, everybody in the family expects to get a cut. If you've ever seen wildlife, if you've ever watched Planet Earth, I know the narrator has a beautiful voice, but he's a pissant leftist. But if you watch Planet Earth, hyenas, they all have to get a cut. There is no such thing as, there is sharing, but it's vicious, right? That's how the first family is. And we display that through primary source data. This isn't conjecture, right? You'll have Denver Riggleman, another terrible human being who served in the Congress, got his ass whooped, and he's no longer a congressman. But he was hired by Hunter to throw cold water on all this. And he's like, they don't have a chain of custody. They don't have authentic data. I want to sit him down, forcibly or not, and say, which part of this foot job is not authentic? I know this is not PC, but the person who is levying the allegations has the burden to proof, right? We've done that. We don't just spout stuff off. And that's why we've had a 0 retraction rate, is because we triple check stuff before we put anything out. And that is why Denver Riggleman, latches on to other more unsavory, less judicious figures to bitch about. But I like going at Denver because he's the best they got. He's the only person. He's out of cash. He needs the money. And he'll do anything and say anything. So, going back to topical plus chronological, there's 3 main sections of the dossier. And this hard drive, again, the scope is very important. Over 200 gigabytes, yes, a lot of that, maybe 85 gigabytes, is pornography, homemade porn. And again, this is not a black sheep. This is not somebody who the family's like, you know what, he's the youngest, didn't spend enough time with him, in high school we didn't look at his, search history enough, and he's just the black sheep of our family. No, this is the smartest man the U.S. president knows from a pure intellectual capacity. So the normal human thing is, if somebody brings up an embarrassing, family member, you say, mea culpa. Nobody's perfect. No family's perfect, right? The Leo Tolstoy quote. But they actually celebrate Hunter. So this presents a weird opportunity for writers, because if you're going to celebrate somebody, you have to, it invites us to examine him. If this is the smartest man the U.S. president knows, hell, it's worth every minute of our time to study this figure, right? He's the most powerful man in the Western world. So 3 big sections: business-related crimes, sex-related crimes, and drug-related crimes, in order of importance. I always hear, and for good reason, the most important stuff on the laptop is not the drugs and the sex. It is important, but it's just a filler. It talks about the character and the hypocrisy of the family. But you can make an argument that some of the sex and drugs, those crimes don't affect the country as a whole. They're interesting. They're worth writing about. They're worth discovering. But they don't necessarily have national security implications. Not every single one of them, and we'll get into those. But the business-related crimes, which we spend the most time on, it starts at 51. By the way, I brought 3 boxes of dossiers. It starts at page 50, and this is free to read online, BidenReport.com. BidenReport.com have 7 million IP hits already. It's the e-reader is free, and for nerds like me and our group, it's keyword searchable. I love that. I hate when you get a big PDF and you can't freaking search the thing. It's not even OCR'd. It's like, dude, I can't work with this. So the business-related crimes go into all the countries that Hunter and his family were unregistered foreign agents for. It's an old law. It's been on the books since 1938, 22 U.S.C. 612, and specifically G, is if you represent a foreign principal, you are free to do so. All you have to do is register with the DOJ. And that registration form is 4 pages. Most of the time lawyers fill it out. And you just have to say on whose behalf, which foreign principal is paying you to do the work, the scope of the work, the date that you're going to do the work, and how much you're getting paid. So that's all that's required, meaning the bar is so low. All it is disclosure. But if Hunter and Jimmy and sometimes Joe were to do that, if they were to follow the law, they would invite much more scrutiny. Because honorable people would start going through that FARA database. Because we do, every day. We subscribe to a service that every single time there's a FARA filing, we get a hit. right? What does that mean? The FARA database on the DOJ's website, anybody with an internet connection can go look at it. It is rich in detail. If you want to know who's, not every single one of them, but a large majority, probably 90%, you want to know who's stealing the country, who's running influence ops, go to the FARA database. But Hunter was in between a rock and a hard spot because he had the coke addiction, he had the 3 girls at Sidwell, he had, in his mind, a naggy wife who demanded liquidity. I mean, we're talking arguments about an $8,500 Neiman Marcus bill. I mean, these people are vultures. So he had to be on that treadmill. And he talks about this in his semi-fictional memoir. But he had a cash crunch. He really needed the cash. But if he follows the law and registers under FARA, his daddy's going to get a bunch of negative press, right? So that is, again, why the laptop is so crucial, because it reveals all of these side deals that Hunter and Joey and Jimmy were running for the entirety of Joey's VP term that they never expected to become public. And that if he would have registered for the FARA, we would have known about it anyway. So they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. And that's why we have to make it hurt. And I've done that. And we've done that. The group, right? Many people. There's Natalie Winters has done some phenomenal work on Metabiota. This is a group effort, right? All we've done is gone deeper on certain topics, but we're not alleging that every single email in the laptop has been thoroughly vetted. All we vetted, I did go through all the emails, 128,000, and you can too. You can download them tonight at BidenLaptopEmails.com. It's been up since May of 2022. Got sued over that. They're seeking a Marxist district court judge in California to take down the website. You go to BidenLaptopEmails.com, and what our task for the report was to log the criminal activity. But there are other connections in the dossier, and this is why I love going around the country and meeting people, because I don't know what each of yours. When you come into a room, everybody comes there with different interests, different things that make them go, holy shit. And I don't know what that is for you, right? So I would urge you all to go home tonight and look up by keyword certain names in Tennessee that will be in the laptop. It is a Rosetta Stone. That's the term we use. It's a new Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone was very important because it allowed people to understand languages that had been extinct. In the same vein, this is a whole wall of communications that American citizens heretofore have been in the blind about. They know at a high level how this sausage gets made, but this is like ground floor K Street scumbags, okay? And we go through it by country. Again, we're not going to go through all 644, although I urge you to do so, even though my mother hasn't. We're going to start with China. It's the most important one. Why? Well, because there is this thing called communism. It's killed a couple 100 million people, and the people leading the Chinese entity are avowed Leninist Marxist. And the American First Family was in business with them. And so the China section, which goes about 65, 70 pages, again, this took me about 3 months of my life. What we did was we looked at all the emails, all the photos. Again, we siphoned off by file type, put them in chronological order, and then what we did was make link analyses. So all of these, I'm from the 50s, man, so I'm a little bit crude. You're going to have to, but all the egg rolls that you're going to read about in the China section, we had to map them. Look at this guy. I love this picture. There was like 3 pictures for Zong that I had to decide on. It took like 3 weeks to pick which one. I love this one with the SIG to the right. So this is an interaction that took place with Devin Archer, a very handsome sociopath, in January of 2011. They're wanting to strike a deal with the Chi-Coms. They want Hunter to grease the gears. Obviously, they don't want him to talk a lot. Nobody wants him to talk a lot. They just want him there and to make some handshakes and to make some intros. And he's like, hey, any chance I can get 3 Biden books to leave with the China Investment Company, CITIC, and Chairman Zong of Wahaha? So basically, what you have here is a FAR violation, clear as day. Some people have been in the clink for less stuff than this. This is Devin Archer, Hunter Biden, and John Kerry's stepson conspiring to act as an unregistered agent in the United States. Because look, on real estate, this magnate who owns this company. He's one of the richest men in China. Devin called him the richest. We don't know. They don't have good records over there, okay? It's just what Xi wants. So we don't know who the richest man is. It's Xi, probably. But they want him to invest in New York real estate. They're setting up a lunch. And this, to a normal human, a non-nerd, would be like, okay, what is this? Well, it takes weeks to unpack the setting, right? These companies that Devin alludes to. By the way, I can get any chance I can get 3 Biden books. What they were doing was having Joey sign the books, make them out to the the Chi-Com business partners. Then Devin would bring him over to China as sort of a lubricant, right? This is influence peddling 101. This is the book that he was pimping at the time, Promises to Keep. My God, what an ironic title. But in there, by the way, I'm sure you've seen the picture with Hunter's fake teeth, right? The veneers. Yeah. We call them the CEFC chiclets. Well, Joey's, they look like white chiclets. Joey's a little bit different shape. We call them the piano keys. They look like piano keys. Joey's cheesing with the piano keys on the cover of Promises to Keep. It's a little bit pixelated there. But this is just one interaction, right? And I took a couple months, got really familiar with a certain set. I'm not going to say I'm an expert on all of it. That would be ridiculous and untrue. But I became proficient in certain sections of the U.S. Code, and this is a clear 371. I guarantee you there were more conversations. There was a follow-up conversations about this magnate in real estate in New York, but we don't have them. So what we have is like, it's sort of those things in hotel room doors. God, what's it called? A peephole? They're creepy things, right? What we have is like a big peephole, and we know some of the communications that occurred. We know that this email definitely happened, and we have all the players in it. But sometimes they would then go to WhatsApp. They would pick up the phone like old mob bosses. That's what Joey does a lot of, right? You have to tap their phone to get them. That's what they're getting Mike Madigan on in Illinois, because he was born in 1940 and does stuff over the phone. And Madigan, doesn't make direct threats, right? Madigan doesn't say, I'm going to cut your fingers off if you don't do this. Madigan and Joey, they say things like, man, that's a nice car. It'd be a shame if, somebody broke the windows in it, right? They make these sort of veiled threats. So there's so much sociology packed in this, because Hunter is so stupid, he puts the FAR violations in emails. And Joey doesn't do that much, right? Joey's like, pick up the phone and call me. I'm sure everybody in here has a parent where it's like, I don't want to text you, answer the phone. Well, that actually is helpful if you're a mob boss. And we describe the Bidens as a non-violent political mafia. That simply means mafias, it's an elaborate, this is going in and out. It's an elaborate structure. There's a lot of people involved. A lot of people rely on you for their jobs, prestige, and influence. And this has been 55 years. Remember, Joey got elected in 1972 with the help of unions, mob bosses. There was a negative ad that was going to go out about Joey, and the newspaper union basically shut down the distribution the weekend before the Tuesday of the Senate race. This is all laid out in a book, the cover of which we put in our report, the final page. It's by Charles Brandt, a very talented liberal writer. He wrote a book called I Heard You Paint Houses, which is a euphemism for killing people, because you shoot them in the blood. Anyways, that scenario, that whole story is like 3 pages in I Heard You Paint Houses, about how Joey's brother, Frankie, by the way, we found a naked selfie of Frankie online. This is the president's brother back in October. Yeah, we're like, what the heck? So apparently he was posting naked pictures online to solicit women. Somebody found the picture and put it on a gay porn site called guyswithiphones.com. You can go look at. By the way, I'm not saying this is the most important thing. We don't even put it on our report because we didn't find it in time. All I'm saying is that, as Steve repeats, this is a family of feral dogs. We weren't looking for this. All we did was run Frankie's face through a facial recognition, which finds every time your photo's online. And sure enough, you got Frankie staring there buck naked. So Frankie helped the unions cover for Joe in 72. So 53, 54, 52, 53 next year. Years in public life. That's a very, very long time. And those decades elapsing, you get people hangers-on that rise or fall with you. So that's why, Joey's had people like Ted Kaufman, Brian McClinchy. These folks are not famous, but they're termites, man. They burrow into it, and that's another goal of the report, was exposing these termites. I use termites very deliberately, meaning they're hard to locate. They go deep into the organism, and they're basically relying on that organism for its entire sustenance, and that's what Joey's public office is. So this is just one vignette of interactions with the Chi-Coms. Obviously, this is another. I'm sorry, I'm going to go over time because I get so excited about it. I mean, this is the vice chairman of their foreign ministry talking in unencrypted emails with Hunter. And, again, if you go to the FAR website, you'll see that some people have to register for even sending flyers out. Like, the statute is written so broadly that any public advocacy on behalf of a foreign principal, and by the way, it doesn't have to be a foreign government. A foreign principal is broadly defined as a foreign person, a foreign political group. Because remember, he's a sophist, he's a con artist, he's a liar, he's a smear merchant. He'll say that Hunter never did work for foreign governments. Well, first of all, that's a lie. We know that. But even if that were true, the statute doesn't require that. It requires any time you work on behalf of a foreign principal. Well, this foreign principal was literally the number 2 dude. Like, you can't get a bigger foreign principal than Yang, and he is talking about hosting a dinner at your embassy and pitching Guardian Realty investors. It's all there in the emails. So, and this is, by the way, this email is trying to get Randy Russell at the front of the line because he wants to adopt a Chinese baby. Again, this is just a message from Hunter. What's the best thing for me to do here? Should I have someone from JRB? Remember Robert L. Peters, Robin Ware, all the aliases? They never say Joe Biden. These are his initials are Joseph Robinette Biden. So they always say, should I have someone from JRB's office weigh in, or is that overkill? And then he mentions David Wade, who was the chief of staff for John Kerry when he and Archer were on the board of Burisma. He's implicated in many FAR violations. But anyways, they're doing this all through permanent means, right? The internet is permanent. Emails are permanent. Even if Hunter didn't leave his laptop, this email traffic is in cyberspace with Randy Russell, David Wade, all of these folks. So not only are they criminals by definition, they're stupid criminals. Our theory about Hunter is not that he's some mastermind. And we don't use this word exactly in the report because, despite my tone with you all, it's pretty dry and it's an academic report. I'm just adding the color because I couldn't in the report. I was very muted. But we describe Hunter and I, in conversation as a political whore. He's not the mastermind. Our thesis is not that Joey is directing all of this. Our thesis is that Joey, and by extension Hunter, have absolutely no principles whatsoever and have changed positions on virtually every position in public policy. And they will be used such that, they are going to do what is best for their own wealth and advancement, regardless of the inconsistency of those views over a period of time. That's the thesis. Right? Because some people, if they don't understand that, they get mad at me and say, come on, this guy's a crackhead, this guy's a loser. You're really alleging that he, Hunter's got a lab coat on and is running those biolabs in Ukraine? No, we're not saying that. We're saying that Hunter's daddy knew somebody at the DOD and could help grease the skids a little bit, right? So he helped them get, the whole story with Metabiota is Hunter helped that company get federal contracts to then run biolabs in Ukraine. It wasn't that Hunter doesn't know the first thing about physics or anything, right? He knows a little bit about painting, a little bit. His lifetime goal was to be a writer at the New Yorker. That totally, went out the window when he got his girlfriend pregnant. He had to make money. So he never became one. So he's an unfulfilled artist. That's actually on the first page of our China section. But I'm going to get into the CEFC and Bohai Harvest bit, because this is relevant to here, Nashville. Well, not technically Nashville, but Leifert's Fork. By the way, I was botching that name. Leifert's.
That's in Franklin.
I know, it's very close to here.
And you know, the congressman for that area is Clarksville all the way to Jolton. Like, I don't know.
Gerrymandered, you mean? Like Bigley or what?
Well, no, because...
Oh, you mean the congressman that represents...
Leapers goes all the way to North...
Does it include here, where we're at?
No, Leapers.
Who represents where we're at right now? I should have checked that.
Mark Green is Leapers. Andy Ogle is here. But Mark Green is Clarksville, and he's the chairman trying to get rid of New Yorkers.
Interesting. So, BHR is relevant to, I'll say, the Nashville metro area because the person holding the 10% share that Hunter got while his daddy was VP, Devin Archer just held it for him. Hunter is going to, you read this lie before, that Hunter was never invested while his dad was the vice president. It's a total lie. All Devin was doing was waiting till January 20th, 2017 so they could have that talking point. But he gave it to Hunter right afterwards. That 10% share, which a liberal professor at the University of Chicago appraised in 2019, this is 5 years ago, at anywhere between $6 to $10 million. In 2019, well, that goose egg, that beautiful goose egg, remember, BHR is a fund that is backed by state money in China. So, for years, the VP's son, and now the president's son, was in business with literal Chi-Com state-run entities. It's undisputable. Now, there was big public pressure at the beginning of 2021 for Hunter to divest this because his daddy became POTUS. He didn't divest anything. He gave it, basically, to his sugar brother, another guy who's suing us, a total liar and scumbag who has an estate in Leipert's Fork. Leapers. Yeah, Leapers. Yeah, P.
Leaper.
Yes.
Leapers Fork.
Yes, Leapers Fork.
Yeah.
$5 million, bought it in 2019, had it revamped. He is the caveman-looking figure who was called in front of Congress and who has not only assumed the 10% share in the Chi-Com fund, BHR, but he's given Hunter liquid cash to pay the mother of his child in Arkansas, and for Hunter to live in a palatial estate overlooking the coast in Malibu.
With the bong?
Yeah, with the bong. That was one of our hits. So again, this guy Kevin Morris has an estate here in Leiper's Fork, and is central.
Did you say Kevin?
Well, his first name is Patrick. But he goes by his middle name, Kevin Morris. When you search Kevin Morris online, there'll be a big bong hit on the porch. And this guy's a month younger than my father. He's 60. He looks like he's 80. He looks like death warmed over. And so we're tracking. Yeah. So Kevin Morris, we basically, I didn't, but somebody else on my team righteously catfished Kevin Morris and got him to divulge just ridiculous information in May of 2022. Wow. And we gave it to the New York Post because the schematic that he produced looked like a work of the deceased Princeton professor George Nash. Remember the movie A Beautiful Mind with the guy with schizophrenia? Well, this is what Kevin Morris... by the way, this guy, by all accounts, if we're to assume his congressional testimony is true, and I think about 15 to 20% is, he has over $100 million and has been the attorney for the South Park creators and for Matthew McConaughey and all the other degenerate Hollywood scumbags for decades. This is their mind map. So again, my friend poses as a left-wing hacktivist to Kevin Morris, and he's stupid enough to start up a text exchange with a random person. He deserves this. He sends my friend this. And we're like, first of all, literally 2% of this is true, right? The truth is, I'm getting worked up, but because Kevin gets me worked up. The truth is, Hunter was on crack. He left 3 laptops at a repair shop. One of them was fixable if that's a word, that day, and he took it home. One was shot, and the other had to be worked on. That's the truth. That's what happened. Hunter forgot to pick it up even though JP called him and left him an email. The Square invoicing system left him an email too, right? It was automatic. That's the truth. All of this is grade A BS. Okay? This is propaganda. This is to divert your attention away from the Chi-Com deals, the sex trafficking and the foot jobs, and the crack cocaine dealing, and get it on how the material came to be public. Right? That is a bait and switch. That's a red herring. And I know we don't fall for that, but this is the stuff they're cooking up while smoking their bong. And so this was never meant to be released. And my friend's like, you're not going to believe this. So we enhanced it. The New York Post put it on its cover. And he loses his mind and starts saying things like, by the way, I wasn't the one texting him, but he starts threatening me. This is the lawyer for the president's son. I know where you live. I'll tell you more if you want. You're effing with the wrong guys. It's not like this will be hanging on you for the rest of your life. There's right and wrong in this world. You are a vicious little, and I'm coming to get you. Make sure you take a few nice outfits to jail. You'll want to look pretty. This is the lawyer for the president's son, thinking that he's texting me, and he's not. He just thinks that because it ended up in the New York Post, that it's for sure Garrett, but it wasn't. And he's suing us over that. In April of 2023, he sued us in Malibu. So Judge Richard Epstein, which is something else,
The irony.
he dismissed one of our. So we filed an anti-SLAPP, which means this is a strategic lawsuit against public participation. Kevin Morris is suing us for hurting his feelings because he's a little girl, and one of the 5 causes of action was granted, meaning Kevin, by definition, he's appealing it to the California Appellate Court right now, but by definition he owes our group about $45,000 because that is 1/5 of our legal of just fighting that lawsuit, just fighting that. That's one of them. Hunter's lawsuit is going to come later in the presentation, but I just want to get this is his family, by the way. All on bongs all the time. This is his estranged wife. They're married on paper. She's the one who spends a lot of time in Leaper's Fork. By the way, we sent flyers to all their neighbors of Kevin smoking the bong. Every single one of them. We littered that neighborhood with him. But this is his estranged wife. This is important. I'm not just making fun of her, okay? I'm not. It's really important because Gabby is the agent for Miley Cyrus and is the chief agent at William Morris, the oldest, most prestigious, richest, most degenerate, most powerful agency in the world, in Hollywood. So this is who the enemies are. By the way, Kevin met Hunter at a fundraiser, at a political fundraiser. So they can't even say that, you could reasonably say, if not but for Hunter's daddy, you would never know each other. And that is true. And the Republicans on the Hill are too dense to even frame it like that. But that's the truth. So our enemies, both in the public sphere and in lawfare, are some of the most degenerate, well-heeled people in Hollywood. It's very sad. But this is who's they've hooked their wagon on Joe. Right? But what is keeping Kevin on it, or what's keeping Hunter honest, I should say, is even though Kevin is giving him liquid cash now, Kevin can sell that 10% share of BHR. Because that's the question all the Republicans are asking. Well, what's Kevin getting out of this? He has no history of philanthropy, right? This guy's not honorable. This guy's not generous. But by Hunter giving him that 10% share, he's able to at least get even. Even if Hunter never pays him back, which if you have any experience with Biden, you know he's not going to. So Hunter's not going to pay the liquid cash back, but at least Kevin can sell that 10% stake in the Chi-Com fund. And by the way, we're the only group, we had a whistleblower inside of BHR send us thousands of emails and internal documents which showed that in November of 2021, Kevin took control of that 10% share. So that's another reason he hates us. We not only expose that he's a degenerate liar, this is, again, that schematic was a bunch of lies. We realize that it's not just, a personal problem, that we go after people. No, this dude is in bed with Chi-Coms. Remember when they said there was a bad meeting at Trump Tower with a Russian that met Putin once? These funds that are backing BHR, they're capitalized by the state council. The chief organ, the chief administrative body in governing the CCP. Meaning it doesn't get much higher and closer to the bone than that. So moving on from BHR. Sorry for the aside with Kevin. But apart from Nashville being in Hunter's memoir, he had basically a bender here. If you read Beautiful Things, that's what it's called. He stays here for about 72 to 96 hours, was able to find crack in one of the neighborhoods here, in one of the parks, and stayed in a hotel by the airport. That's the extent of his Nashville connection. Sorry, there's not more. I like to have a local connection when I go to places. But Kevin Morris is connected. I have no clue why they just, other than, you guys know they're turning the area blue because all the money from the California refugees is pouring into here, driving up real estate prices. So you can blame Kevin for that in part. But this guy is central. Remember, Hunter wouldn't have, because he blew all the money on hookers and blow. So Kevin is funding the American First Family, and he's suing us for intentional infliction of emotional distress. 60-year-old male suing us for that. Has 7 houses. The documentary. We've been profiling everybody involved in this sham documentary. In this congressional testimony, Kevin said this was for litigation. That's an old trick. Say it's for litigation and it's protected by privilege. Right? So they're just filming this documentary. It'll be vicious about me. I have no clue what lies they'll tell. But if it ever gets released. But they're using this documentary for litigation purposes, and it's followed Hunter around for over a year at this little congressional stunt. You saw that. There was this little rap man named Jason Cohen scurrying out behind Hunter, this guy. All these people are just absolutely handsome. But going back, there's so many threads to pull. This is another Marco Polo exclusive, as they say. The laptop revealed a very close relationship with a guy named Mel Monzak, who has been Joe Biden's power of attorney since 1986. This guy was basically, he was Joe's treasurer in his failed 2008 campaign. I'm going to move this over just a foot. This is Melvin Irwin Monzak. He's a little bit older than Joe. He's pretty old. And basically, this guy is the mover and shaker. He doesn't have any online presence. He's basically a digital ghost. But he's Joey's fixer. He handles everything. When the Republicans discovered that $40,000 sham loan between Jimmy and Joey, that was Mel's law firm. I mean, he's the money bags. Mel is essentially the 21st century version of the court Jew. You heard about this, right? This is very well established in European history, where you'd have some type of monarch like the Habsburgs or whatever. They would have somebody handle all of the money, in part because they couldn't charge interest. That is essentially the function of Melvin Monzak here. He has been controlling the Biden purse string since 1986. He has the power. This is his power of attorney we found on the Newcastle County website. He has the power to sue on Joey's behalf, to collect checks. This is Bo and Hunter and Mel. We were able to, by the way, it took us like a year to find even 5 pictures of this guy online. So he's another dude that if the laptop were not released to the public, we wouldn't even know who is causing most of this. Joey's first staff secretary, Michael Hockman, was another partner at Mel's law firm. So Mel and Joe are old law partners, have known each other at least since 1969, and they're connected at the hip. Donors, treasurer of his campaign, best friends. So again, these are important things that we're trying to write a very accurate first draft of history. We'll not get everything right, of course, but the laptop will speed that up. Usually, because of the way the presidential library system works and the timeline for releasing documents, usually the guy has to die and then there's a certain amount of time. I don't agree with that, by the way. I'm just laying out the process. Usually we don't get this level of transparency until 40, 50 years later. Right, and then the deep state's covering up most of it. With the JFK stuff still hasn't been released, and it was one of the failures of 45's first term. I do think he'll be the second president in American history to serve non-concurrent terms. It'll be very Trumpian when he does. But the
Grover Cleveland?
Yeah, you're right. So again, Mel was implicated in the Panama Papers. This was a liberal journalistic outlet that found the registered agent and beneficial owner information of millions of offshore companies in the Caymans, British Virgin Islands, Cook Islands. Mel's running a trust called the Pindell Investment Trust. We have no clue who capitalized it, but it very well could be Joe's money there. We have, for years, told the congressional committees to subpoena this. Go down to Cayman. You know, if any of these staffers even have watched a little movie called The Firm, they know how the sausage is made. Put one of those guys on a plane, say, don't come back until you get the beneficial ownership information of Pindell Investment Trust. Two of these guys, not only Mel, but David Ignatius Walsh I were Joe's law partners. So two of Joe's law partners are implicated in the Panama Papers. It's another thing we were the first to talk about.
Wow.
By the way, the time that Mel was the treasurer for the OA campaign, he got fined because he broke the law. There's over 2,000 footnotes in this report. The thing I'm most proud of is everything is archived using Archive.ph, which is an open source, free tool. You know, archive.org is a liberal outlet based in San Francisco. As Richard Nixon said, I would never shake hands with anybody from San Francisco. It's one of my favorite quotes ever. But archive.org will take things down if you ask them to. You can do a takedown request. And one of the people who's defamed our group, his name is Yakov Applebaum. His daughter lives here in Nashville. We actually sent a criminal referral about him to New York State for forging my signature in writing. But he, I'm getting to, I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about right before Yakov? Archive.org. His website, from the aughts, I think he founded his blog in like 2001 from 2010, it's completely gone. If you look up like yakovapplebaum.com, it says, this URL has been excluded from archive.org. So archive.org, we use archive.org a couple of times because archive.org is the one that will archive PDFs. Archive.ph doesn't archive PDFs, and it drives me up a wall. So we only use archive.org on a PDF footnote. But every other time we use archive.ph, what does this mean? Every single hyperlink, over 2,000 of them, are written in ink, in stone, and nobody from the Biden PR machine can erase anything. And that's one of the greatest contributions of our group, is creating a permanent digital repository and trail to where all of this felonious conduct. If you go online tonight, every single of the 644 pages has been archived like 35 times, just by random people online, right? That'll never go away. It'll never go away. They'll never be able to say this didn't occur. And that's very important to me, because tyrants and people throughout history have always, there's this old Roman concept called damnatio memoriae, which is basically they took down statues. It's what's happening now. They took down statues. I lived in Spain for a semester. I studied there. Every single street with a general tied to Francisco Franco has been changed. All their freaking street names. It makes me so mad. And with this dossier, they'll never be able to do that. Even if they take it offline, there's archives, there's physical copies, and this is something that's true that the censors and the propagandists can never extinguish completely. That makes me sleep well.
So where's Obama in all of this?
He's coming. I know, I'm getting close to being done. This isn't it. Another thing that's made them very mad is through the course of this report, through the drafting of it, I was commenting as I went along on my Telegram channel. And somebody commented, because I was talking about suspicious activity reports, and only a certain section of the United States knows what these things are. These are reports that the banks submit to the U.S. Treasury Department when they see suspicious activity, namely a round dollar large wire transfer from Cyprus to a shell company in Delaware. Well, there was somebody who commented on my Telegram channel and said, hey, would you want to see some SARS about Hunter Biden? And I said, well, my first thought was, oh, this is a trap. This is a honeypot, right? And so we did some digging, and my friend got his name, and then we ran a background report on him, and holy crap, he works in anti-money laundering at J.P. Morgan. And he, on an unsolicited basis, he's the one who approached us, because this is actually a part of an OIG complaint at the U.S. Department of Treasury about me personally. He sent us 5 SARS, unredacted, screenshots from the internal computer system at JP Morgan. This sent them up a wall because they never expected this. They usually think everybody at JP Morgan's a shit-lib and nobody would take the risk of reaching out to me. Well, they've been on our website for now over 2 years, BidenSARS.com. Can't make it any easier. They've been archived hundreds of times. And they definitively proved that the U.S. First Family, namely their son Hunter and his associates, were paying Russian pimps, Russian prostitutes, large wire transfers from Privat Bank. You'll notice that bank is implicated in the IMF loan scam. Privat Bank stole billions of dollars. Ihor Kolomoisky, the Ukrainian oligarch, has been sued in the Chancery Court in Delaware. He stole billions. That guy knew Zlochevsky, the head of Burisma. So all that 2014 stuff with getting I'm not going to talk about Shokin and I because everybody's heard about the prosecutor getting fired. But I just want to bring up one thing that doesn't get mentioned a lot is Ihor Kolomoisky was friends with Zlochevsky. They actually called the founder of Burisma a minigarch and Ihor Kolomoisky an oligarch. So they have gradations over there for corrupt figures. So Kolomoisky was the true money bags. He's the one that had a controlling interest in Privat Bank. He would use the IMF money to loan himself huge loans to basically sham Cypriot domiciled shell companies. And $2 billion got washed through this. I know it's nuts. But anyways, these SARs mention Privat Bank by name. They mention Cyprus by name. And you can all go look at them, download them, BidenSARS.com. These were displayed at congressional hearings. Have been talked about a lot. Abby Lowell bitched to the Treasury Department about me, saying that I conspired with the bank employee. Remember, Abby Lowell was a former ACLU card-carrying member. He liked writers for a time. Until we got there. And now they want to imprison us and basically try to bankrupt us because we're going after the prince's son, or we're going after the king's son. We're going after the prince. Remember what Joey said on a hot mic, 2022, down when he... No, that's another one. No, he said that not on a hot mic. He was live when he said that. The hot mic was in Florida looking at hurricane damage, and he was with the mayor, and he said, nobody F's with a Biden. Remember that? And the mayor said, goddamn right? This is what happens with we are effing with the Biden. So what does that mean? That means lawsuits. That means domestic surveillance. That means all of this. They are tyrants. It is not a conjecture. It's not conjecture. It's not a perspective. He is literally a thug. And I spoke twice in Delaware. One of them was in Wilmington at the DuPont Country Club, and somebody came up to me afterwards and said, you know what, people have known about Joey since the 80s. There was a landscaper in Delaware who had lined his asphalt driveway with these beautiful rocks, and he hadn't paid. Joey hadn't paid him in like 3 years. This landscaper brought back a backhoe. He brought his men back to take the rocks back because Joey wouldn't pay. This is passed to me by somebody in Wilmington. Okay, so you're getting the second hand, but it is pure to form. This is after the first aneurysm. Joey storms out and says, "What the F do you think you're doing? I'm going to sick the F and IRS on you." Right? So he has been doing these shakedowns. He's been doing these threats of getting IRS involved for decades. And Jill's first husband, who loves our group, I had lunch with him last year. He loves the dossier. He thinks it's incredible.
Poor guy.
He was indicted over an $8,500 tax dispute 2 years after the divorce was finalized. $8,500. Hunter does that in the night. That's a dime bag and one Russian girl, okay? That's nothing. But Bill Stevenson got indicted over that. And what does that mean? That means Joey, this is like European monarchy stuff. If you go after them in any way, they are thugs. They will go after you. And the decision you have to make is whether or not you want a comfortable existence or whether you want a hard-charging one. Because there is, we could settle these cases against Hunter, take our websites down, right? But that would not be honorable. You won't be able to tell your grandkids that you did absolutely everything you could. And I'm trying to think what to end on because I know it's been a lot. By the way, in every public talk, I never go into the drug and sex crimes during a public talk because well, number one, we put on the flyer that it's for an adult audience because it is explicit content. But I really think that you should just read them. Just read the drug and sex-related crimes. We go through ATM charges. We ID'd every single hooker and drug dealer. For months of my life, I was calling hookers and drug dealers, asking them for comment about their interactions with a member of the American First family. A couple of them talked. A couple are Trump supporters, hilariously. And they hate Joe. The day Hunter got indicted in the Central District of California, one of them, whose name is Alessandra Wellborn, put on Facebook, "Lock him up, LOL." So some of them have taken the cash. They took Hunter's cash, but in their mind know that Joey is a horrible president. So there's a wrinkle to all this, meaning I'm actually meeting later this week with a former business partner of Jimmy Biden's in Kentucky. Jimmy was involved with this scam called AmeriCorps, which was a rural hospital chain. Yeah. So there's a facility in Pineville, Kentucky that I'm going to, and this guy, they just settled. Because Jimmy and Michael Lewitt, who was the con artist with a hedge fund called Third Friday Return, they just settled. Not only with the SEC, and they're going to have to pay like $5 million. He just offloaded his mansion in Florida in December. We were just watching the clerk's office, $5 million. So this SEC disgorgement's got to be around that amount. And he just settled with Michael Fry in the case with AmeriCorps. So everybody can talk now. So all these people, meaning, you remember the Trail of Tears with Andrew Jackson? When you spend 50 years in public life and you're as corrupt as this dude, there's a trail of tears behind you. And all of these people, not all of them, but some of these people have come forward and just looked at the report and said, holy cow, man, I didn't know that they were doing, some people when they get conned, they obviously don't have access real time to what the other people in the con are saying about them in emails. So when they're reading at Biden laptop emails about how somebody conned them and they didn't know this at the time, they, number one, feel very violated, and two, feel somewhat of an affinity for us, even though we don't know them personally, because they're like, holy shit, you put this out, and without you guys, I wouldn't have known this, right? So they're a little bit more loquacious than normal because they realize we just want to put the data out. And one of the lawsuits with, the lawsuit with Hunter is he thinks he owns this data. It's ridiculous. He abandoned it. So, and again, that's what I said at the beginning, which is why it's such a weird situation. When you
lost how many? 3 laptops, right?
Well, he brought in 3.
But he lost 3. 3 he does not have possession of.
No, 2 he does not have possession of. One is that the one that we wrote this dossier, the original hard drive is with the FBI in the evidence locker in Wilmington, Delaware.
Right.
There's another one that was stolen by Russians.
Oh, Russian interference? Russian collusion?
I just searched the word brunette. So this is how well I know the dossier. I searched the
Russian collusion.
I know. Yeah. So this is on page 310. This is on January 6, 2019. They're breaking up a crack rock right here.
Oh, yeah.
This is Hunter with Kellyanne Quarry.
And
this is all...
The Finger Lakes.
Yeah, the Finger Lakes tattoo. Because his deceased mom is from... It looks like a tiger just scratched him in the back. But those are actually the 5 Finger Lakes. But this is... He's up at 5:30 with I haven't slept yet, with Kellyanne Quarry, one of his many crack women. And this is right after the copulation. So this is still on iMovie. And he's talking on the bed, breaking up a crack rock, about how another laptop of his got stolen the previous summer. I'll just read this real quick. The Trist, we worked so hard on this, guys. We had so many people pick this apart like a carcass in a field. Meaning, we really worked hard on we wanted to make it as dry as possible, but also hilarious. The Trist also included a 5:30 a.m. confession from Hunter. One drunken night in Vegas during the preceding summer, a couple of men who accompanied a beautiful Russian honeypot stole one of his laptops. Quote, this is from an article. According to the president's son, after he regained consciousness, quote, there was this Russian 35-year-old, really nice, pure brunette who distracted him. Meanwhile, the 3 men had taken his belongings. The dealer and his 2 guys, they have videos of me doing this. They have videos of me doing crazy effing sex, effing, my computer. I had taken tons of left that webcam on and somebody stole it. The female, for whom a court in Pennsylvania recently issued an active bench warrant, that's the girl we're talking about, for her arrest, then asked Hunter if he was worried about the foreign thieves potentially blackmailing him. Quote, yeah, in some way, yeah, Hunter replied, explaining that his dad would be running for president in 2020. I talked about it all the time. So think about all of the crocodile tears, that were shed over potential compromat, golden showers, all of this drivel that was cooked up in the imagination of Christopher Steele. And we have a verbal confession from the other dude's son talking about how a Russian drug dealer in Vegas, the setting is very clear. He's in the hot tub. He's on crack. He passes out in the hot tub with, in his words, a pure brunette. Totally believable if you go through the laptop. Her friends, probably her pimps, if we're being honest, because I've learned a little bit about this world, stole his crap. So there's a laptop out there right now that we do not have possession of. We have no clue where it is. The other laptop was left at Keith Ablow's place and then seized on February 3rd, 2020 in a What? The very perverted psychiatrist in Massachusetts. The DEA seized Hunter's laptop and then gave it back to him. So, and there'll be meaning, because of the way iCloud works and when Hunter was syncing and which email addresses he linked to the computer, there'll be a ton of implicating stuff on that laptop too. So there's stuff out there right now that we don't know about. There very well could be a laptop in the possession of a Russian drug dealer who at one time, basically ran the LA crack scene. And there's a ton of compromat about the Bidens. Don't take my word for it. We just transcribed a video. Now, we did have to turn the volume up all the way because they're sitting like 20 feet away from it. But it's clear as day. This is what he said. So I just had to search brunette. That's in. This is John Kerry's daughter. Remember that fiasco?
His daughter or stepdaughter?
His real daughter. Yeah, Alexandra and Vanessa. They're two corrupt people as well. Vanessa is in this dossier. Vanessa ran a grift called, I can't remember the name of it.
Behind Stanley, right?
Yes. This one was Vanessa Peace Corps. It's called Seed Global Health. This guy took a plea deal for violating the FARA. This is him and Hussein. But Vanessa was John's daughter. They both have the physiognomy of a horse. But Vanessa is very close with Devin Archer. So that's the connection. Devin Archer was on the board of Burisma with Hunter. Seed Global Health wanted to get nurses and aid workers into Ukraine. They were trying to work something out. So all of this back channeling with and this is where they wanted the fundraiser to be $100,000 a seat. So again, this is all in by saying the sex and drug-related crimes are worth your time to read through. I tell my mother, just read 3 to 4 pages a day, and you'll make it through in a couple months. And what these do is we left, any time there was proof of criminal activity, that we had 2 primary source pieces for it. So there's a ton of interactions that are on the laptop that aren't in our report because we can't prove a statute violation based on that interaction. So there's something for everybody here, right? Meaning whatever your interest is, even if you aren't interested in the crimes per se, which is what we are, there's a bunch of communications that are scummy, lobbyists, special interest groups. I mean, what populism runs on, which is basically muckraking, tired of insider deals, hating the patronage system, that is all in the device. And by the way, we thought we could get it done in 6 months. We figured that it was going to be around 300 pages, but it wasn't. It was, the final number was, I'll be shocked if anybody can find more than 459. But 459 is a floor, meaning we for sure know that there are 459 violations on the device. There could be more. If we had more if we had all our WhatsApp messages, we could get that number up to 500. But that's not all Hunter, by the way, to be fair to him. Now, his is a large chunk. We are going to make that delineation someday. It'll be this year when we catch our breath a little bit. Meaning we are going to count exactly how many times Hunter is in a particular column of the crimes. But this is the Biden family and their associates, and the 459 number counts federal and state laws and regulations. So this column alone took me about 4 months. It's the when, where, who, and what. Meaning these are all in the order they appear in the report. I'm very proud of that. when the crime took place, the venue for any honorable, this won't happen, but if an honorable prosecutor were to bring it up, this is the proper venue, who is involved in the exact statute violation. So when you hear on... Thank you very much. And I really did benefit from the group. I couldn't do this alone. That's why this stuff is too voluminous to do alone. That's the whole point for starting the group, right? You do things together because there are some things you cannot accomplish alone. So one person would take the photos, one person would take the PowerPoints, one person would take the emails, and you all break it up. You go through each thing methodically, and that's really what a proper law enforcement agency should do. We say in the very first page, this is what the FBI should do. This is how you tackle this much criminality. But they won't do it, because it's the prince. He's the king's son. This is a protected prince. I love the word princeling. You'll find that word in our dossier a lot. That's what the Chi-Coms refer to as children of the CCP elite.
Aaron, is your full dossier submitted in the congressional record?
That's a very good question. Short answer is no. But, and I'll tell you why.
How many congressmen have your book?
Every one of them. Every one of them. Yeah, it's been talked about. No, the left won't. No, it's been talked about at multiple hearings. Anna Paulina Luna talked about it at length. Our work has been featured, but it takes a very courageous person to touch this third rail in its entirety. Like, the report is not censored. Like, yes, there's no genitalia, but we do put the contact information of every single pimp and hooker. And it takes a very courageous public figure to put that into the record.
They know they'll be destroyed.
Yeah, and they don't want to be sued. I mean, we found a Christian nonprofit law firm in California to handle our suit with Hunter, and we've already had to pay them like $75,000 in 3 months. So they don't want that expense. So there has to be a calculation. That is one of our goals. Like, that's probably, in terms of Congress, I have so little expectation for them. Meaning we wrote the report for them in a key way, but in another way, we wrote it because we knew that they wouldn't produce this. This should really be produced by a subcommittee. That's what the report should be.
They're afraid.
Yeah, and there are certain situations that the laptop presents that are uncomfortable because they implicate people that certain people know in real life, right? Like, there's a lot of chummy Republicans. By the way, we criticize Republicans in this report more than Democrats. There are more Republicans in that letter from the 51 former spooks than Democrats. Do you know that? It's like 30 to 21. There are so many former George W. Bush officials on that letter. It's disgusting. So that is in part why the Congress won't produce a dossier like this, because somebody's former boss is going to work at a lobbying firm that's implicated from it. And it creates uncomfortable situations, and those people would just rather not deal with it. But I'm going to open it up to a couple questions. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for coming tonight, and we can hopefully have a dialogue.
So a lot of those 51 you're talking about...
Thanks. Appreciate it.